I'm going to preface this video with saying this is a total experiment. I have no idea if this is going to work or not, but here's the situation. We've got this old Jeep we bought a few years ago used, and the seat fabric is just shredding on it. So I'm going to try to fix this up enough that it doesn't tear anymore. The end goal here is not a perfect repair. I just don't want this to tear anymore, and I'm going to pick up some seat covers for this. So I just don't want this foam to break down anymore. You can see it's broken down a bit here already, and I just want to get this hole closed up just enough that it doesn't deform the seat. Wear and tear in and out of this, even with the seat cover, I think is going to break that foam down more underneath. So I'm going to try and protect the foam a little bit more and get the fabric together, and then this repair or cheap fix will be hidden by a seat cover. So the end result's not going to be pretty, I don't think, but I don't see a good way of repairing it any other way, and the fabric is very worn on all sides of this, so even if I did repair this, this fabric is going to keep tearing, so it needs a seat cover on it no matter what happens here. As far as equipment goes for this, I'm going to use some duct tape, some regular old silver duct tape. This is some heavy duty wax thread, and I've got a couple of large eye needles here. I wish I had a curved needle, but I don't have one. But again, I'm not looking for beauty here. I'm just looking for a repair to go underneath another seat cover, a lighter, because this is really frayed, and I think stitching this, even with the duct tape supporting everything, is gonna fray more. So we're gonna melt the ends with the lighter. Now here we go. I'm gonna light this up. You can see how that seals the threads up. This is a polyester blend, so it is getting some melt to happen here. I just want all those loose threads to be completely sealed. Alright, so end result there. We've got pretty clean edges now, and there's a nice bead of melted fabric along the edges here. Let me reiterate, I have no idea if this is the correct way to do this or not. This is just how I'm going to do it. I'm going to get a small piece of duct tape, a little smaller than the hole size here, and I just want to reinforce that foam underneath there with it. So I'm going to slide that in. Cover up that torn piece of the foam. Apologize for any poor lighting, but you can kind of see the net result there. Now I've got two layers of duct tape over the piece of the foam that was starting to. Next, I'm going to create a couple of duct tape seams along the edge of this here. So what I'll do is I'll take a few small pieces of duct tape to create more of a curved piece, and I'm going to roll those one end over, then flip that rolled piece over the top here. I'll do the same thing on the other side. So what will end up happening, I think, is at the end of this we'll have two exposed small sections of duct tape here that create a new fabric seam to grab the fabric that hasn't been totally abused yet. Alright, so I'll show you what I'm planning here. I've got the sticky side of the duct tape up here. I'm just going to fold over about a 1/4 inch of that. I'm going to slide this underneath the seam here. Not as easy as it appears. So sliding into there is not working very effectively. I'm going to invert this seam, hopefully without causing any more damage. And I'm going to stick that duct tape to the underside of the fabric. So I've left just enough of that to roll over the top, so I've got some material to stitch, and I'm hoping that that's enough to get this together. Again, covering it with car seat, so we don't have to worry about beauty here. We're just looking at a repair to hold the seat together underneath the car seat cover. Okay, so I've got 4 pieces of duct tape like I did before. I just folded those over a 1/4 inch. You can see the lip sticking out here. This lip is just enough that I can roll it over and get a stitch running through that when I pull these sides together. I used some extra pieces of duct tape to reinforce the areas where the other pieces of duct tape meet. And I think I'm going to stick a couple more small ones in the corners just to kind of help the corners stay, but we'll see how it all turns out here in a second. So this is probably going to be really difficult to see because I don't know how to work and not be in the way of the camera. But I'm going to start these stitches at the very corner, and I'm going to leave the trailing end of the thread underneath the seat. I'm starting with a real short piece here. I just don't want to deal with a lot of thread. So we'll give this a try and see how it starts working out. Alright, so I've looped my first stitch through this side, and I tied it off underneath, so we've got a nice sturdy thing. And I'm going to try and keep my stitches underneath here. So I'm going to go through, back down, over, up, and back down. I'm not sure if that's the right way to do it, but that's how I'm going to try it. And like I said, this is a big experiment. So I'm about 8 stitches into this, and as you can see, it's pulling the tear together pretty nicely. Obviously it's really ugly because there's duct tape there, but that's seeming to reinforce the fabric edges pretty well. I'm going to go reload my needle here and get the rest of this sewn up, and then I'll film the end result. So we'll have a bead looking seam along the edge of this. As this has progressed, I'm about 2/3 of the way done with the tear. You can hopefully see here there's a little bit of a lip that is rised up, which is totally normal because I'm pulling this together from underneath. We've got our stitches along the side here, and all the stitches connect underneath and come back through. So I kind of expected to have that bead there. It's a little more pronounced than I had thought it would be, and you know, hopefully by looking at this, some people can learn from my obvious issues here and maybe do a better job when they have to do this, or try to do it. But it's working pretty well. It's holding the seam tight. The wax thread pulls tight nicely. It slides through the duct tape pretty easily. As I get closer to the end, obviously it becomes harder and harder to get that straight needle through there, so a curved needle will be a huge advantage with this. But so far so good. It's working fairly well. As I've gotten closer to the end, I'm finding it easier to run the needle through both sides at the same time, because I don't have enough room to really run that through. So I'll get the needle started, and I know it's probably difficult to see here, but we've got the point of the needle sticking through, and then I just loop it through the other side. I roll that seam back as far as I can, get it started, and I've got a little pair of pliers here. I'm using that to get the needle through the fabric on both sides because it's just too sharp for me to push with my fingers. If I had a thimble, maybe it'd work, but the plier works pretty well. As I've gotten down to the end, I've resorted to running the needle all the way through both sides with the pliers. I kind of wish I'd discovered that earlier. I'll just kind of get it started, and then I double check on the back side of the seam to make sure that the needle's coming through where I want it to. And then do the same thing on the way back. It is not graceful, but it's working. And I'm down to the final stitch here. I'm just going to run this through, and I'm going to tie it off on the top side. Again, I'm covering this with a seat cover, so I don't really care too much how it looks. The whole point of this is to help protect the foam from breaking down and to give that seat cover some, you know, ability to keep some shape on this, because the foam is pretty rough from people sliding in and out of this thing. It's a, I don't know, nine-year-old-ish vehicle, so it's seen some wear and tear. Okay, so I couldn't really tie this off with, you know, with the camera in the way. I couldn't get in there. So I just looped it over the top. There is one stitch going over the top. The rest of the stitches are underneath this seam. It is ugly. It is probably not the ugliest repair I've seen. I ran a detail shop for quite a few years. 10, 12 years ago I ran a detail shop. So this is not the ugliest repair I've ever seen. But again, this is not permanent. This is not meant to be seen by anybody. This is just to keep the seat stable underneath the seat covers and to keep that foam from breaking down any more than it already has from just abuse from sliding in and out of the car. I also went ahead and ran one loop stitch in at the top of the seam as well to close that up and give that end of the seam a little bit more strength. Again, I don't know how great this is going to be long term, but I'll report back and let you know if it has any problems. I'm picking up seat covers in the next week or two here, and I'll do a quick video on the whatever ones we choose to pick up for the thing. But again, just a real quick repair. Keep that seat from breaking down, keep it from ripping any more than it already is. Did a loop stitch on each end of the cut, and then as you can see, you know, we've got a pretty good solid seam here, and it looks fairly strong. It's hideous, it's ugly, yes, but it should hold that together pretty well. I'll make an update if anything changes in the next few days or weeks while we're trying to find what seat covers we've got, but that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe below.